Hello, everybody. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Maddie, and I am one of the education staff here at the South Carolina Aquarium. And today we have an awesome program. It's a little bit different than some of the other virtual events you may have seen us do. Rather than focusing on our animals and learning about their adaptations or their habitats and how they live, we are going to learn about some of the people who make it possible for us to run our building, for the aquarium to exist, who take care of those animals, who help to market, who help to design our building, who help to teach people that come through our building. We're going to meet a bunch of different people today. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to get this started. But as we're getting started, I saw that a few of you shared in the chat where you are joining from today. I see some people from Georgia joining us, from North Carolina, but originally from Ohio. Some friends joining from Hilton Head Island Middle School, from Defusky Island. So pretty local to our area, but a little bit spread out in Clover, South Carolina. Thank you guys so much for sharing. I always love to know where our visitors are joining from or our viewers are watching from. So thank you so much for sharing. Oh wow, and there's so many of them coming in right now. I see South Dakota, I see lots of South Carolina, some Wisconsin. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. So like I said, my name is Maddie, and I'm a part of the education staff here at the aquarium. So my job kind of encompasses some more specific parts of education. So instead of teaching people on the floor who come through our building, guests who walk through our front doors, I'm doing things like this. I'm running our virtual programming, and then I also run our camp programming. But we're going to talk to another educator who does something very different than what I do today. And again, some people who do things completely unrelated to education. And we're going to learn so much today. Before we meet our friends, we are going to go through a little PowerPoint just so you guys can familiarize yourself with us here at the aquarium because we have some people watching from a little bit further out of state. So let's talk about our aquarium careers. Let's learn about the aquarium first and then move into those careers, all right? So first up, I want you to find yourself on this map. I saw a lot of you again sharing where you're joining from. I've seen Oklahoma pop up since the last time I looked. Lots more South Carolina. So find yourself on this map, and this might be a little difficult because this is pretty zoomed out, right? But I zoom in just a touch, and we look at just the United States. That might make it a little bit easier since it doesn't look like we have anybody viewing internationally today. But find yourself on this map, and then that little yellow star that you see on the east coast of the United States, that is where we are here at the South Carolina Aquarium. We're located in downtown Charleston, South Carolina, and that little picture on the right-hand side is actually a picture of our building. We house only native species to South Carolina. And we are located right on the Charleston Harbor, making for a really awesome place to be able to teach about all of those native plants and animals from, right? And like I said, there are lots and lots of people that help to make this building what it is, who help to run the aquarium, to take care of the guests that walk through the door, to take care of the animals, to help us get funding for the work that we do. There are so many different people that work in this building, and we do such different jobs from one another. So what we're going to do today is we are going to meet 6 different people who work here in the aquarium and learn a little bit about their day-to-day jobs, their favorite parts of their jobs, the hard parts of their jobs, kind of how they got into the field, what kind of school they went through or volunteering or internships, whatever they did to get to this point. And we're going to learn about all the different ways that you could have a job in an aquarium. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen really quickly, and we are going to get started with our first guest. Let me see. Go, panelist. There we go. Sorry, guys, little technical difficulty. Let me figure out how to have my friends unmute. There we go. All right, we should be good to go if my friend Ashley wants to turn her camera on. Let's see.
Hey, Maddie.
Apologies, guys.
Can you? Yep.
There we go. I was going to say, Ashley, I can
Okay,
hear
there
you.
we
There we
go.
go. Perfect.
It it started to let me, and then it said, "Wait, just kidding."
Technology's difficult. It's the maybe the hardest part of my job. So,
Yeah, I bet.
Ashley, thank you so much for joining today. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. Busy as always, but happy to be here.
Good, usually, yeah. So guys, this is Ashley. Ashley is one of our sea turtle biologists here in our Sea Turtle Care Center at the aquarium. And Ashley's gonna tell us a little bit about her job. Ashley, do you want to start by telling what's a sort of typical day like for you?
We kind of always chuckle when we hear what's your typical day because we really don't have one here in Sea Turtle Rehab. We are the only sea turtle hospital in the entire state of South Carolina. So that means we have to be prepared for any sick or injured sea turtle to strand along our coastline pretty much at any given moment throughout the day. But we are a fully functioning hospital. So my job as a sea turtle biologist specializing in rehab is overseeing and encompassing everything that happens with our sea turtle patients while they're here with us. So I'm in charge of making sure that all of their diets are prepped, the turtles are fed, they have a clean and healthy space to heal in while they're here with us. And then I also carry out all of the treatment plans that are scheduled and developed by our veterinary team. So I get to do injections, feed out oral meds, assist in surgical procedures, things of that nature. And then I also get to wear a lot of different hats. So I've learned how to do a lot of plumbing projects, building and constructing different types of enrichment, tank dividers. There are a lot of different things that go into sea turtle rehab that are outside of just sea turtle care in general. But all of those things are going to be happening on almost any given day.
Yeah, so there really is no typical day for you,
No.
is the all-encompassing of that.
Yes.
But it sounds like you've learned a lot of different skills having this position, things that people may not
Mhm.
necessarily associate with being a sea turtle biologist.
Yeah.
Yeah, some interesting skills there. Ashley, what do you think is your favorite part of your job? I feel like I can guess the answer, but
Oh,
you want to tell
oh,
us?
I would say it kind of changes on a daily basis, but like if I make it broad scope, I really love the complexity puzzle solving aspect of my job, which typically comes into play mostly during sea turtle admits or when we get new patients into the hospital. I personally feel as though I thrive best in a fast-paced environment. And when you have a new patient coming into your doors, that's when a big part of the emergency care comes in, whether that patient it might be crashing or having a difficult time breathing. It's part of my job to make that easier on that patient and do everything in my power to ensure that they can survive and thrive here while they're with us, and even so once they go back out into the wild. So definitely fun to use that kind of puzzle solving part of my brain, not only in those moments, but throughout the entirety of their care, because treatment plans constantly need to be adjusted based on that individual patient and their needs. So it's always really fun to kind of get to do that and work with my team to come up with some out of the box ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of collaboration involved for sure.
Hmm.
Are you a big puzzle person outside of work too?
I definitely am.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm very dedicated to my New York Times games every single morning, so
Yes,
I get
yes.
it. Actually, on the flip side, what would you say is the hardest or most difficult part of your job?
Oh, the most difficult part of my job. I'll highlight something that a lot of people might not necessarily think about. I would say probably our schedules. I got into this field because I love the animals and want to take care of them and all of those things. But something that was never like fully communicated is you don't work 9 to 5. You work when your patients need you, on holidays, on weekends, early mornings, after hours. So I'd say it's challenging, but it's once you get your foot in the door and kind of figure out what that looks like, being able to then navigate a work-life balance has been great, especially surrounded by such wonderful people that help you kind of get to that point. But like for example, my schedule is I work Sunday to Thursday. I've been on that schedule for quite some time. Normally it's, 7 to 3, 7 to 4. But we do have some really early mornings, some late nights, and then we all rotate who works what holidays every year. So last year I worked Christmas, so this year I did not. The following year, maybe Thanksgiving, so on and so forth. So definitely makes it hard to coordinate with my family to
Yeah.
travel, but it's been something that, as I've continued on in this field, I've gotten used to. And it's really nice to have a weekday off sometimes so I don't have to take time off to schedule appointments and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I feel like that's kind of one of those could be a pro, could be a con, definitely a struggle to
Yes.
kind of figure out that balance. But then there are definitely
Hmm.
some pluses to having the occasional weekday built into your weekend.
Absolutely.
Ashley, how did you know, or did you know that you wanted to get in this field? You kind of talked about like getting your foot in the door. What was the thing that kind of led you here?
Oh gosh, I was one of the early kiddos who decided I wanted to work in marine biology when I was about 6 years old. I had gone to SeaWorld with my family, and my I asked my dad, how do I do this? And he's not in this field at all. So he said, become a marine biologist. And I kind of ran with that. So I got a degree in zoology. My bachelor's degree is in zoology, and then kind of tailored my experiences more so towards my interests once I kind of knew what those were, because there are so many different avenues, as you're seeing today, of how you can work in the animal care field, conservation, education, in order to kind of accomplish all of those things that you find joy and passion in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a somewhat similar story. I think a lot of us do, of the
Yeah.
very early on being like, this is so fascinating. How do I get into it? And then there's so
Yes.
much more to it than just marine biologist that,
Correct.
again, like you said, we're gonna see today. But a lot of people don't know anything other than that, which is exactly
Yeah.
why we do this program and what we do. All right. Ashley, what is your schooling experience? You mentioned kind of going to
Mhm.
getting your degree in zoology and stuff, but what exactly got you, or what do you need in order to do your job?
Yeah, so great question. So, for example, like when we are looking for internships or candidates for permanent positions in the field, you're looking for someone who has the degree. So, the degree title, don't let that be a setback for you or bog you down in like, okay, I need a degree in X, Y, or Z. I have colleagues in sea turtle rehabilitation all over the country that have general zoology degrees, marine biology degrees, animal science, psychology. So the degree title itself for my role specifically doesn't necessarily need to be something super specific. And then I started volunteering at like local animal shelters before I was in school to kind of learn animal care in more of a general sense. So I grew up in Ohio, so not a lot of opportunities to work with sea turtles there.
Right.
So learning skills that were transferable to animal care in general. So whether it's volunteering or doing internships at other zoos and aquariums or a local animal shelter teaches you how to keep a clean and healthy environment for animals that are currently living in that space. So things like that. But then I did several internships. I actually worked in our education department here for a little while to kind of work on hopefully some public speaking skills, because there's a lot more that goes into sea turtle rehab, like we were talking about, than just taking care of the turtles.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's, again, like you said, no one set way. You can kind of get into
Yeah.
this field in a lot of different ways.
Hmm.
Ashley, what is one thing that you wish more people knew about your job?
Oh, wish one thing people knew more about my job. I would say like I absolutely love sea turtles. I'm very, very passionate about them. But for sea turtle rehab in specific, your goal is to send them back out into the wild. So you want to be as hands off as possible with your patients because you want them to stay as wild as possible. So when they go back out to the ocean, they're not swimming up to people looking for help. So I think a lot of people will come into this field thinking that they're going to get to spend a lot of time physically with the turtles, and that's not necessarily the case. We spend a lot of time caring for them in a broad sense, but I don't really want them to know who I am, even though like I would love to, hang out with them and have form a,
Right.
a bonded type of relationship where some people might see that with keepers, with their gorillas that they work with, or things like that. So the bond is something that is missing from this field on purpose, right? Because that's not in the best interest of the animal. So you're not really getting to spend as much physical time with your patients. It's more from a distance, observing and making changes to their treatment plans based on those observations.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine when we were growing up, it was you get to work with the dolphins and you get to, train the dolphins, and it's just not like that with
Yes,
sea turtle
yes.
rehab. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it. We got to let Ashley go to get back to taking care of all of her sea turtles. So thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to unpin you now so that we can get our next guest involved. So our next guest, somebody who works a little bit more behind the scenes here at the aquarium. She's involved with everything that you see as you walk through the aquarium, right? She is involved with all of the design, all of the different things that go into making our aquarium look the way that it does. But you may not see her out on the floor. She's working kind of upstairs on our third floor in our offices, doing very important work up there. So let's get her in. And this is my friend Sierra, who is our
Hi.
graphic design associate. Sierra, how are you doing this morning?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Sierra, I'm going to start off with a pretty easy one, hopefully.
Yeah.
What is a typical day in your position like? What does your beginning to end look like?
It's not, it kind of changes all the time. So there's not one typical day because I work based on the needs of different departments. Sometimes I'm doing ads for the marketing person that runs our ads. Sometimes education needs something. So it just depends. I get up, I kind of like get into work, see what everybody needs, and then work on it as I go.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely use lots of things that you design for us, and we're so grateful for all of them.
Yeah.
But I can see that. Yeah, you kind of got to figure out who needs what on any given day. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sierra, what's your favorite part of your job?
I definitely think it's brainstorming. So there are events and invitations, and those we've got a lot of freedom. Our ads tend to look pretty similar. So those are kind of plug and play. But when I get to do invitations for like when we have galas come around or special events with different departments, getting to really like explore different creative options and ways to make that seem special is really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It must be so fun to have such a creative job. I am
Hmm.
personally not the most creative person, but I've had to get into it a little bit working with you and working with the rest of our marketing team. So I'm very glad that there are people who have
Yeah.
that set of skills because it's not me.
Hmm.
Um, Sierra, what do you think the hardest or most difficult part of your job is?
I think, and with that, when I have projects that are so creative, it's really hard to let go of ideas that don't end up working. So sometimes I'll be really fond of something and want to keep using it. And I'm like, no, this isn't quite working for what we want. So kind of letting those things go sometimes is a little bit tough, but I always like what I go with. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine. I personally, when we're running our camps, there were plenty of games that I came up with over the summer that we ended up not really using, or the
mhm.
kids weren't fans of them, and so then we had to pivot. And I was so heartbroken that these games that I
Yeah,
came up with weren't perfect. But you gotta, you live and you learn, and you move on to the
yeah.
next thing. So I can get that. Sierra, did you know that this is what you wanted to do? Was this a sort of lifelong passion kind of job, or did you sort of fall into it?
Maybe not specifically doing graphic design. When I was younger, I loved to paint, I loved to draw, so I was really artsy. And as I got older, I was like, maybe just being an artist isn't quite the most realistic. So I started looking at different things. And I think sometime in high school, I was like, graphic design or illustration was really what I wanted to do. It made the most sense to be creative, but have that structure of like helping other people and making things for them. So,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, like you said, being in art is maybe not the easiest job. It's not the
mhm,
most stable all of the time, while so important. And so I can see how the trade-off of figuring out what is a little bit more stable or has more
yeah.
structure for you. What did you go to school for? Did you get a college degree? Did you do internships? What kind of gave you the credentials to be in this role?
So I went to school at Winthrop University up in Rock Hill, and I majored in graphic design with a concentration in illustration. I didn't do any internships with that. I did a couple of jobs for the school, designing a couple booklets. And so that education really helped me. Not all graphic designers need a college education. It can be really helpful, but sometimes just learning and practicing and getting those opportunities to do freelance work can kind of prep you for it. So I did a little bit of that, but mostly it was school.
Yeah, okay. So school's kind of the base level, right? Helps get you there, but then
Yeah.
the learn as you go a little bit is kind of a
Yeah.
little added thing. And I'm gonna, before I move on to my next question with you, I did just somebody asked what that bone behind you is. And for those of you that are watching, that bone is a part of this is a brand new gallery, our conservation coast, that opened where our former touch tank was. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's a whale rib bone, or some sort, or
I
jawbone, one of the
I
two.
think it might be a jawbone. I'm not
Jawbone?
quite
Okay.
sure though. Yeah.
Something on a whale, which is why it's so large, because it is
Hmm.
from a very, very large whale. So I just want to get that in. Sorry, Sarah. Um, but what is one more th or one thing that you wish that more people knew about being a graphic designer?
I think there's a misconception that it's only ads, and we do a lot of advertisements and billboards. But even for education, I've made magnets of animals and I do invitation design. And if anybody needs documents shared around the aquarium, me or Katie, the other graphic designer, will like create and make those and share them. So there's just so much to it. You don't have to be put in a box with it.
Right. Yeah. You guys, I mean, like you said, it's tons and tons of things. You've made
Mhm.
stickers, buttons, magnets.
Uh-huh.
beautiful, beautiful boards for our programs, kind of backdrops and habitats for our programs that we teach in education. So
Yeah.
definitely a lot more than people probably think.
Uh-huh.
Thank you so much for joining, Sierra.
Yeah.
I appreciate you kind of talking with me today. We're going to
Yeah.
let you go so you can get back to drawing and designing and doing all of those fun, creative things. And we will see you around. Thank you so much. Guys, our next guest that is going to join us is somebody who is involved in taking care of our animals. So, kind of going back a little bit closer to what Ashley is doing, but taking care of some very different animals and also in a very different area of the aquarium. We're going to ask my friend here to start her video and get you all set up. And this here is my friend Sophia. Sophia, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, good. Sophia is one of our aquarist slash divers. Is that correct? Do you say slash? Is that the right title, Sophia?
Yeah, I just say that I'm aquarist and diver here
Yeah,
at the
aquarist and
aquarium.
yeah. All right. So an aquarist and a diver here at the aquarium. Sophia, do you want to tell us a little bit about what a typical day as an aquarist and diver is?
Yeah, so one thing that I do in the morning is I go around and I check on all of these animals behind me just to make sure the tank looks good, the animals look looking good, and then we go and we start prepping our feeding. So we are really great. We have a great dive team here that actually does a lot of our feed prep. So we get our food prep started, and then if I'm diving for the day, I get my gear ready, and then I dive or I feed some animals.
Okay. So is it how big is your dive team exactly? Is it you and a few other people, or is it larger than that, smaller than that?
So we have about seven of us on our dive staff, and
Mhm.
then there is about 60 to 70 volunteers. So quite a number of divers here at the aquarium.
Yeah, well, you must need it. That's clearly a pretty big tank behind you. For those of
Oh,
you who are not familiar
yes.
with the area that Sophia is standing in front of, this is our great ocean tank here at the aquarium. It is the largest, I'm sorry, the deepest saltwater tank in North America. It is 385,000 gallons of water with roughly 500 individual fish in there. So it takes a lot of food to feed that whole tank. Sophia, what is your favorite part of your job here at the aquarium?
My favorite part of my job is working with these animals. I have a really good relationship with a few of them, one of them being our loggerhead sea turtle.
Mhm.
She is the light of my life every time I come to this job. So one of my favorite parts of this job is working with the animals.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been lucky enough to watch you feed some of our sharks in the Great Ocean Tank, which is so fun and entertaining to watch and very cool. And then obviously Coretta, the our loggerhead, definitely has a very fun relationship with you there. What do
Oh,
you do
yes.
exactly with Coretta?
So she is our resident sea turtle here at the aquarium. So that means she just is gonna stay here. She doesn't get to go out in the wild like our friends in the sea turtle hospital do. So we do enrichment with her. We have a bunch of toys at the surface that we may switch out with her to see if she wants to interact with them. She gets crated to feed. That way, when we feed our other sharks, she won't come over there and try to get their food. And then while she's in her crate, we can scrub, we can give her a vet checkup, we can do all kinds of things. But she is great.
She is. She is quite fun to watch in the tank. Sophia, on the flip side, what is the hardest or most difficult part of your job?
I would say the most difficult part of my job is when I have lots of things to do on top of diving. So that just becomes a lot of time management, which can be hard at times to do the time management when you have to do a certain amount of dives a day and then you have to feed so many times a day with these animals. So when time management gets a bit crazy with me, that can be one of the hardest things of my job. But I love what I do, so I can manage and I push through.
Absolutely, yeah. I think a lot of us probably have that. I think you more so than a lot of us, but I think a lot of us probably feel that kind of, it's there's no typical day, so it's figuring out how you're going to structure that individual day. How did you know, or did you know that you wanted to do this?
I had no idea. I knew I liked marine animals, and so I think like most marine biology was the career I wanted to go into. And then I moved down to Charleston when I just graduated college, and I was just working at a retail store. And then I got this internship. I was working with jellyfish and seahorses and an octopus, and that kind of got me into this field. And then I stayed with it. I interned here again, and then I interned at the Columbus Zoo. So it's just kind of a chance happening for me to want to know that I wanted to work in this field.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have anything like as a kid that like really pushed you where you knew marine biology was it, or was it just fascination.
I just really like to swim. And then my godparents lived in Tampa, Florida. And so my mom and I would go to Florida quite often, and I like the ocean.
Yeah.
Um, I think I like sharks at one point in my childhood. So just things
Yeah.
like that.
I feel like any girl that works in marine biology now had a shark or a dolphin or a turtle face
Yeah.
as a kid. So I get it. What kind of schooling? You said you moved down here to Charleston right after you graduated. What kind of schooling did you do to get in this field?
Yeah, so I went to a four-year university, so I have my bachelor's in pre-professional zoology and my minor in chemistry, which is something you don't necessarily need to get in this field. If you have an equal amount of what's the word, experience, that also works well. Then I did three internships unpaid. Some of our internships around the country are paid, which are super great, but my internships were unpaid. So I did about 3 years of unpaid internships before I landed a job in this field, but I have my four-year degree plus my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. What about your diving certification?
Yeah, so I was in college and one of my friends recommended this dive shop in Columbus, Ohio, and I did it. And I realized I loved scuba diving. And so I think I got my scuba certificate when I was like 19 years old. And
Mhm.
I dove ever since. I have my rescue diver. I'm working towards other certifications, but diving was something I didn't really know existed until somebody told me that there's
Yeah.
a scuba shop local to me, and then I was in the water.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't immediately think Columbus, Ohio was a place you could get your diving
Yeah,
certification, but
me either.
place for everything. Sophia, last question for you. What is something that you wish more people knew about your job?
Yeah, one thing I wish people knew about my job is that it's not just all about feeding animals. We have we have
We
a
have
lot.
fun with it.
Yes, that's my friend Al. He did our dive show today, but something about my job is that it's not all about just feeding the animals. We do have to have some hard conversations with about our gallery and our collection here. So you have to have those hard conversations, whether so quality of life, welfare, all of that stuff. Our animals are in our care, and we want to make sure they're getting the best quality of life here. And so some of those conversations can be really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine. Well, thank you so much, Sophia, for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We've got to let Sophia go and get back, maybe to do a dive show later today. Who knows? And I saw a couple questions, so I'm going to take just a second to answer a few questions about our very large tank there. I saw some people wondering like how we feed the animals. Sophia mentioned that we have to feed our loggerhead turtle separately, and that's to keep her from eating the food that is intended for our sharks because Coretta doesn't really have natural instincts. She never lived out in the wild. She doesn't know that a shark is a predator and she probably shouldn't try and steal food from it. But that being said, our sharks are target trained. So there is a big long stick that Sophia will drop in the water. She'll bang it up against the side of the tank and it makes this noise. The sharks know to come up and that they're going to get food when they hear that noise. And it kind of works like a drive-through system. They circle the top of the tank, they'll come by and take a bite. It's very calm, very polite. But then Coretta has to be removed from the tank and fed separately in her little milk crate. And I say little, it's very large milk crate, but in her milk crate to feed her separately. But I just want to make sure that I hit that because I saw a couple of questions about the tank and how we feed everybody. But let us move on to our next guest. Our next guest works with our fish, but in a little bit of a different way, slightly differently than our friend Sophia does. We're gonna get her up in just a second here. Sorry, guys. Slight technical difficulties again. Apologies for that. There's a lot of things that go into being the virtual programs coordinator like I am, and it can be a little clunky sometimes, but there we go. We got it all sorted out. And here is my friend Mara. Mara, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. Mara is our good catch coordinator here at the aquarium. And so, Mara, I kind of want to start off by, can you tell everybody what our good catch program is?
Sure. So, our Good Catch program through the South Carolina Aquarium is a program where we focus on sustainable seafood. We look at local seafood from North Carolina to the bottom east, like the southern east coast of Florida, and we want to promote businesses that are putting that seafood out into the community. We have what's called working waterfronts, and those waterfronts are our local community members owning businesses and going out and fishing for our our food and for our seafood businesses to have food. So we want to be able to support and promote those businesses through this program. So it's definitely a different way than how the inside of the aquarium works, but it's our way to connect to the community in a bigger way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Very important nonetheless. Mara, do you want to start off then by explaining what is a typical day in your position? And I have a feeling you're going to say what everybody else does, which is there is no typical day, but I still want to hear
That's exactly right.
it.
So actually, I'm going to say the same and the opposite thing. We have many typical days, but the problem is they're not the same. So every day we can have a typical day that kind of falls in line, but they're not every day. So I might have a typical day that might be the same in 2 weeks that it is, versus the day that I'm having tomorrow.
Right.
So there are many different things that I do. So I put on educational dinners and events around Charleston and Greater Charleston. I've gone to Beaufort and put on some events as well, where I talk about sustainable seafood with the seafood that we are possibly ingesting or using during that event. I
Mhm.
also go and I table at events that are specific about seafood. So if there is an event in the community that is an oyster fest or a shrimp blessing of the fleet, I sit and I table and I talk to people about why they should care about those shrimpers that are out there getting those fish or the oyster harvesters that have gotten those oysters for your oyster roast.
Right.
I also do, I produce presentations about seafood that I give to fisheries professionals in the area, as well as we do, I meet with like public members, board members, things like that to talk about why possibly they might want to switch to utilizing local and sustainable seafood.
Yeah, absolutely. So it
Yeah,
sounds like a lot of kind of the overarching is you're building awareness. You're educating and you're building awareness for
that's
this
exactly right.
very important work.
Yes.
Mara, what is your favorite part about being the Good Catch coordinator here?
Okay, so my favorite part is that I work with super passionate people about sustainable seafood. So a lot of the business owners that I work with or fisheries professionals that I work with are extremely passionate about what they do and the choices that they're making every day to
Mhm.
put this sustainable seafood product out into the community. That is what really gives me drive. I love doing that. I love working with people like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I kind of first started here at the aquarium, this was my first big girl job, my first in my field job. And being so happy about just finding other nerds, like other people who were really, really into this. And I was so shocked that that was a thing. So I can see how that's definitely a big highlight in your work for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. You find
Um,
this
on
common ground and you can just chat forever.
exactly, we can just yap and yap and yap about fish. On the flip side of that, what do you think is the hardest or most difficult part about your job?
So I think the hardest part about my job is that sometimes, especially working with the public, I talk to people who really struggle with their role in this, making this a big movement or something that's important. A lot of people feel like they don't have the power. They feel like they're just one person and they can't make the best choices, whether it's a financial reason or locality reason. And I think that we sometimes misunderstand our closeness to making change. And sometimes we can make just a small change. You can change one part of your diet, or you can choose to go to one restaurant over another restaurant if you want. Some seafood for dinner. There are things that we can do as just small people, and maybe I lived a long part of my life not eating seafood because I did not like the practices of getting seafood and learning more and working with the commercial fishermen that I've worked with. I've learned about the way that they promote and that they support sustainable seafood within their business that makes me want to promote and utilize their business. So even if you don't possibly eat seafood or you don't have a connection to seafood, you can always promote and suggest that people utilize these things that exist to support our community.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always something to do. It can be big, it can be small, it can be
Absolutely.
directly related, it can be kind of a background, a little bit of helping, but yeah,
Yeah.
always something to do, right?
Yes, yes.
Um, how did you know or did you know that you wanted to do this kind of job?
So I grew up in Minnesota, actually. So I grew up not around the ocean. When I was in fourth grade, when I was around 10 years old, I went to California and I got to see some tide pools and I got to go to an aquarium. And I thought, I never want to be away from this ever in my life. Obviously, I'm 10 years old, so I can't leave my home. But I knew that I wanted to work in fisheries from that point. I have had the great fortune of working in the DNR system, so in the state regulatory system. And I received my master's degree. And so I've always been passionate and working hands-on in the field. And this is just a kind of a flip side of that. So I've always, when I was interested, I was like, this is my goal. I'm going to go do that. So
Yeah, absolutely. I love the going to the tide pools at such a young age. That's my favorite is hearing the very formative stories for people who didn't grow up near the coast because I'm the exact same way.
absolutely.
And then got a crazy, crazy chance in Hawaii and like, got to
Yeah.
live out there for a tiny bit of time. And then that sparked the whole thing. So I get it.
That's exactly right. Yep. I
Yeah,
went from Fiji to the Virgin Islands to South
exactly.
Carolina. So
Yep.
I've
Just
done it.
bouncing
I've
all around.
all over. Yes.
How did you get this position? Did you go to school for it? Did you kind of volunteer and do internships? What kind of background do you have to give you the
Yeah.
credentials for this?
Sure, sure. Yeah. So, like I said before, I have my master's degree. So, I got my undergraduate bachelor's degree in biology and aquatic sciences. And then I looked for jobs and I interned and volunteered. And then I interned at an aquarium in northern Minnesota. And then I realized that I really wanted to get deeper into the research part of my career. So, I went and I got my master's degree. Got my master's degree in the Virgin Islands and was working very, very hands-on in the fisheries field, which led me to being able to be employed in the DNR and the Department of Natural Resources via all of these other states. So that helps me gain the experience that I needed. I think that the field is diverse, so you might not have to get your master's degree. You could probably get into the field in some other ways, but that was just my interest at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the kind of common themes is that everybody has their own way of making their way into the field, right? Whether it was,
Absolutely.
you did get your master's or you did a lot of volunteering and interning, there's no one set way. And clearly there are lots of different jobs within this field too. So there's lots and
Yeah,
lots of ways. Last question for you, Mara. What is something that you wish more people knew about your job?
sure. So, the big thing that I wish people knew about my job is I am just a small part of a large part. So, I think that there might be people out there who are like, I don't want to touch fish or I don't want to dissect fish. That's what I did for a large part of my career. I might not want to drive on boats or be on the water, but you might still be interested in fisheries. I think that this is a great opportunity to learn that what we do in fisheries doesn't always have to sit on the water. It can be inside. You can do marketing for institutions that are working in on the ocean. If you're passionate about this, you can just be involved in some different ways as opposed to just being straight hands-on. I work as an event planner, I work as a presentation manager, I work in all kinds of different ways. Even I've visited and volunteered at oyster farms through this job. So you have an opportunity to say, oh, this is the thing I like and enjoy, and this is the thing that maybe I'm really good at. And you can kind of merge those two interests and create a job that can fit in our field. I think that there are a lot of different and diverse opportunities, and there's just some cool things we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think there are like you said, so many different ways, so many different, you can apply your creativity. You can apply if you like the weird things like dissecting fish and the hands-on
Yep,
stuff, you can apply all of it. Well,
absolutely.
Mara, thank you so much for joining us today. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Maddie.
it. I'm going to let you go and get back to
Awesome.
your work.
Thanks,
And we
everyone.
have we have two more guests that we are going to get a chance to talk to today. I did see that somebody typed in the chat and said, "How do you make a difference if you don't eat seafood?" And I want to have Mara answer that question, but we got to make sure we get to our other interviewees. But if you go onto our website, the SouthCarolinaAquarium.org website, you can find more information about our Good Catch program, and you can find ways to help if you don't live near the coast, if you don't eat seafood, and just more information about the program in general. So go take a look at that. But we are going to move on to our next and second to last interviewee. This person works more closely with me than some of our other people that we've met. He works in education with me. There we go. Perfect. And does some really, really remarkable things within our education program. So let's go ahead and get started. And Isaac, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here.
Good, good, Isaac. I'm so glad to have you on. Isaac is one of our education interpreter twos. So, Isaac, do you want to start kind of by telling us what exactly that means?
Yes. So being in the education department, it's a lot of informal education. But being an interpreter is getting that information and kind of uh, interpreting it in a way that's more accessible to a general public. So that could be explaining to a 4-year old, or it could be explaining to a 40-year-old. But it's kind of getting that knowledge down, and being able to connect with them with that knowledge, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's trying to transfer the way that scientists talk into the way that the general public talks, because Lord
Exactly.
knows scientists don't know how to communicate in a way that is not a little bit too above my head. So I get it. So really important work, you know. Isaac, do you want to tell us what is a typical day as an education interpreter too?
Ooh, you see, that one's a tough one. There is no typical day, and I'm sure you've heard that so many times today.
So
Um,
common theme.
but the theme of today, there's no typical day. No, but we really are like one of the first people that guests get to see and interact with, even sometimes before they get to see some of the animals. So a normal day is just making sure that everyone is being well taken care of. I mean, even if that's someone approaching us and asking us where they can reach our next program, or someone sitting us down and having a full-on conversation with us. But we also have different areas that we like to be around. Obviously, you'll see us on the floor the most. You're going to see us at the touch tanks, the shallows. But also behind the scenes, we're the ones writing some of those programs that you guys love to interact and play with, some of those pop-ups. So a lot of it is on the floor and for the floor, but there's a little bit that happens behind the scenes too.
Yeah, absolutely. If you walk past the kind of grouping of educator desks up on our third floor in our offices, there's always some brainstorming and some chattering going on as they're working on whatever their next pop-up or whatever their next program is to really engage the public and teach them something. Isaac, what is your favorite part about being an education interpreter?
I feel like our department is one of the departments that is more hands-on with a little bit of every department, which is something I really enjoy. I think being in the education department, that allows me to express myself creatively, which is really important to me. But also being bilingual, it allows me to reach a larger audience. So my favorite part definitely has to be the flexibility that comes with being in the education department. It's not really one narrow thing, and um, I think a lot of people, since they see us on the floor, they see us at these touch tanks, they might assume that we just are watching the animals. One of my favorite parts is just being able to interact with the different departments in our own facility.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I feel like we work very closely with obviously animal care. One that people may not think about is guest services, that we work really closely with them when guests are walking into the building and things like that. Isaac, you mentioned your bilingual and your translation work. Do you want to talk a little bit more about kind of the translation work that you've done for the aquarium?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people often don't realize how much conservation they're doing on the day-to-day basis, um, both in English and in Spanish. So one of the things that I really like to do, especially when it comes to translations, is really honing in on that conservation message. Because of course we love to see people do things unintentionally, but when you put so much more intention behind that, you start to make a difference. So being able to do that in English and in Spanish is so important to me, because people are already making a difference, but like knowing and seeing it is very special to me.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that I translate is general information, of course, but it's also how to help animals, or how to make a difference out in the wild, or how even coming to the aquarium is making a difference. And then being able to do that in 2 languages is just a plus.
Yeah, you're just reaching so many more people now with that awesome ability that you have, definitely. Um, Isaac, what do you think the hardest or most difficult part of your job is?
Okay, and now this is gonna sound funny, but I do think it's public speaking. I think there's there's always an initial ball of nerves when it comes
Yeah.
to having to first step out there and be on a microphone, or be in front of a large audience. So public speaking surprisingly is the hardest thing, but it also is something that you get better at, you get more confident in with practice. But there's always that you always get that initial nervous feeling, no matter how many times you've done it, that initial nervous feeling. Um,
Absolutely.
it, but once you get out there, I mean, it's great. It's great. You start noticing smiles, laughs. People are actually leaning forward to pay more attention. So it definitely is. There's pros and cons to it.
Definitely. I think that's so funny because I think that's a more common maybe hardest part of an educator's job than people would think. I think a lot of us are more introverted than
Yeah.
our microphone personality gives us. When I first started at the aquarium, Isaac was already working here, and I'm sure he remembers my kind of rough initial programs because like he said, the learning how to publicly speak it's a skill. You can develop that, you can work on that because I was not a public speaker when I started here. Isaac, did you know that this is what you wanted to do with your life, or did you kind of fall into this job?
I mean, yes and no. I think growing up, I've always had a fondness towards animals. I've always wanted to take care of animals. I've always leaned more towards the mammal side of the animals, just because, obviously, growing up with dogs and cats, and even growing up with like farm animals, that there was more of a history with me and those animals. So I actually got into where I am today, starting as a high school intern. It was an opportunity to get some hands-on experience and maybe something that I was interested, but also something different, something new. Because I mean, even look behind me, you got a fish, you got the river otter. Like it's a little bit of both worlds.
Yeah,
But when it came to education and informal education, I didn't really realized that I was so passionate about it until I got in it.
yeah,
Noticing like the joy and the curiosity is something that really motivates me. I like to say it's food for the soul. So that's one thing that I really enjoy. But it's definitely not one thing that I knew I wanted to do growing up.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's a pretty, again, common theme with a lot of education staff here at the aquarium that I didn't know this was an option, that this was like a job that existed, that informal education is, we're working to make that a more recognized field, that it's not just classroom teachers and things like that, while they are so important, that there are other ways that people can learn too. Isaac, did you go to school for this, or did you you said you started as a high school intern, obviously, so that definitely
Yeah.
gives you a foot in the door, but how did you get the credentials to do this job?
Well, funny enough, growing up, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. So I took a lot of like forensic science and
Yeah.
human anatomy, and then quickly I realized that I am very squeamish. So with that came seeking opportunities outside of that. Like scholarship opportunities or internships is a really common one in our field. I think a lot of people don't recognize how much unpaid internships one has to do before
Yeah.
having kind of a good footing in this field. But a lot of it definitely requires passion mainly. A lot of seeing what you like, seeing what you don't like, but just always willing to give it a try. But definitely my schooling helped a lot. I got, I mean, pretty much all high school. I took some sort of biology class.
Mhm.
And then seeking out opportunities outside of school. So obviously that high school internship, um, and then it's already a very competitive field. So making it as far as I did, and then being able to speak two languages definitely helped me.
Absolutely.
Um, but yeah, a lot of it is seeking opportunities kind of outside of school as well, because a lot of places also seek out experience, which is
Right.
very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Experience is a big one, whether it's those internships or volunteering. And we are very lucky and very proud of our high school intern program here that it is a paid internship, which makes a really big difference, because, like you said, a lot of them are not. And so, it's important to recognize that it's not always the easiest to get into this field when you don't have paid opportunities to give you that experience. So it can be a challenge
I
for
agree.
sure. Isaac, last question for you. What is something that you wish more people knew about your job?
Ooh. Um, I think I think being able to, I guess, be so flexible is very important.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people definitely enjoy a set schedule, a set routine. But I mean, this job comes with so many different opportunities, and I think people really need to be open to those opportunities. I think that's what's really important. Um, I if people go into this field, I hope that's something that they keep in mind. Just being extremely flexible to those opportunities is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think flexible to, yeah, figuring out the opportunities that are going to get you to where you want to be in this field, as well as, I mean, on our day to day, we do not have a set schedule every day. We come in and we work in 30-minute increments for our entire day. So it's not the job for everybody, but if that's the way you like to structure your day, then definitely a very fun position to be in. All right, Isaac, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. And
Thank
we
you.
have
Thank you.
thanks, Isaac. We have one last friend that we are going to interview today. And we're going back into our animal care side of things. So we've met one of our sea turtle biologists, one of our aquarists, and now we are going to meet one of our biologists who works on several different animals around the aquarium. She actually started off in education as well, and worked with Isaac and I for a bit. But without further ado, let's bring up Liz. Hi, Liz. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Maddie?
I am so good. What are you standing in front of, Liz? Let's start with that because that's a very
Oh
different
my
backdrop.
God. I'm so glad you asked. I am in our mountain forest exhibit. So we've got some fish out here, but the guys that I deal with are in this tank right here. Obviously not swimming behind me at the moment. Perfect timing. But he is right back in this area right here. So he might make an appearance at some point,
I'm
but that
sure
is
he'll
one of
come
our
out.
North American river otters, Bo. We normally have two in there. One had an annual exam this morning, so he's still waking up from his anesthesia. So he is behind the scenes still, but we got one in there.
Here we go. Well, we have one of our friends there. Now, Liz, you are, like I said, a biologist, and you work with our otters. Do you work with any other animals in the aquarium?
I do. So I am a biologist assistant for all of the non-fish animals in the aquarium. So that's things like the birds. We've got the river otters. We've got an opossum. If you follow us on social media, you've seen Poppy on there.
We love
And we've
Poppy.
also got reptiles that I help take care of. So any sorts of box turtles, sliders, snakes, and some amphibians. We got some amphibians I help take care of.
Do absolutely. So that being said, I feel like there is no typical day for you, right? Are you kind of coming in and just assessing who needs what each day?
Yes. So
Yeah.
we've got more biologists on our team that I check in with every morning, see what everybody needs from me if they need any help doing anything that day. And that's how I kind of plan out my day and see who needs help when in the day. But it's pretty much a guarantee that I'm going to clean something. I'll clean an exhibit, clean an enclosure, and feed somebody. Everybody's always getting fed every day. So.
Everybody, lots and lots and lots and lots of food prep that goes in on in this building. Liz, what is your favorite part of being a biologist here?
My favorite part is that I am in a unique position where I get to work with a lot of different animals. So some other facilities, you might just be in one department and that's all you're helping take care of is just those animals. But it's kind of a cool position to where I get to help take care of multiple different animals. So I've
Yeah.
got raptors that I help take care of. And then on the other side of that, there's all of the birds out in the salt marsh, which are very different. And then you've got the otters and the reptiles and snakes, which are very different from all of those. So I
Great.
kind of
Yeah,
like that
absolutely.
my position is a little mix in everything.
Yeah, absolutely. You get to kind of have your hand in a bunch of different things, right?
Yeah.
And I love that you still get to, even though you don't work explicitly with the fish, you still get to work with animals that live in the water or maybe live in the same food webs or food systems as fish, right?
Yeah,
You're still kind
definitely.
of connected. Absolutely. Liz, what do you think the hardest part of your job is?
I would say the hardest part is that it is a very physically demanding job.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, if you do follow us on social media at South Carolina Aquarium, um,
Good plug.
we just posted a video of the otters. It was their birthday yesterday. They turned 6 years old. And we
What?
had to carry out an ice cake for them that was at least 60 pounds. So it's a very
Oh
physically
my
demanding
God.
job. You're carrying heavy things. Um, you're jumping up on surfaces to clean and everything. So
Yeah,
you leave
absolutely.
tired at the end of the day, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. Everybody should go check out our social medias and go look at that cake because it was beautiful and gorgeous and the boys loved
Different
it.
layers, different
Yes, it
things
looked
inside fish.
fantastic. Yeah. Didn't
There he
realize it
is.
was. There's Bo. Didn't realize it was quite that heavy. My goodness.
It was
Um,
pretty heavy.
but we also have a question in the chat about somebody wants to know if you help with Liberty. And since we're talking about having to hold up kind of heavy things, do you want to talk about your work with Liberty?
I do. I love Liberty. I do get to work with her. I've started training with her, so she does get training most days of the week. I would say five, at least 5 out of 7 days, maybe four. But it's all to help with her medical care and to help her be able to participate in all of that. So we work on getting her to jump up on our glove. And you might think 7 pounds is about how much she weighs. You might think that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you got to hold your arm all the way out here, it
Yeah,
gets to be a little bit heavy. But we do
absolutely.
that. We do station work with her. And then we also work on touching her in different spots. That way we can just make sure that everything feels okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, for my friend that asked, you can sometimes see either Liz or our aviculturist Alina working with Liberty. They will train out on exhibit. It's not like a
Mhm.
set time or a set program, but you might get lucky sometimes and get to watch. So if you ask when you come into the building, they may be able to give you some insight of to whether that's
Yeah.
an option
And
during.
pretty consistently, she's got a program Monday mornings at 10
Yes.
o'clock.
Yeah,
That
true.
is one
Right.
that's pretty consistent about being able to see her train, but every other time it's just kind of dependent on what we're doing that day.
Yes, absolutely. Good job, Liz. I was trying to remember what day of the week that program was. I'm glad you remembered. Um, Liz, did you know that you wanted to work in this field? Did you know that this is what you wanted to do?
I always knew I wanted to work with animals in some capacity, but I never knew that I wanted to kind of be a biologist or some facilities call it zookeepers.
Hmm.
Didn't really know that for the longest time, but I was always something I was interested. So when the opportunity presented itself and I kind of thought about it, I was like, wow, this is actually something that I'm interested in doing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What kind of schooling or former work experience did you have before you started as a zookeeper, or not as a zookeeper, as a
As a
biologist?
biologist. Yeah, I went to school for my bachelor's in organismal biology. And then after that, I went to get my master's in marine science because for a while I really wanted to do sea turtle work
Mhm.
and maybe do on the research side of things. That's why I say that I didn't always know I wanted to be in this kind of position.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe I wanted to be on the research side for a while. So I went and got my master's, and then once I graduated, I moved here. And you guys just met my friend Isaac right before. I actually used to work with Isaac in the education department here at the aquarium. So I was in that position for almost a year and a half. And then this position opened up, and this is something that I've really wanted to do for a while. So I
Yeah.
applied and ended up getting it. So I made the switch over.
Yeah. So the experience of like kind of getting your foot in the door, even if it wasn't your ideal job or your perfect dream job of working as
Yeah,
an education staff, definitely got you that kind of you're you're in for that job a little
for
bit.
sure.
And as sad as we were to lose you on education, I love watching you do your job now. It's
And now
amazing
I
to
still
watch
get to
Liz.
educate
And she
because
does,
I'm
exactly.
here.
Liz is really great about calling us when there's something fun happening to let us know that we should, send an educator over to tell guests what's happening. She's really good at involving education in what animal care is doing, and we're very grateful for it. Liz, last question for you. What is one thing that you wish more people knew about your job?
That it's not cuddling animals all day. I know a lot of people think in this kind of job and field, you're just going to be cuddling cute animals all day. That's not the case. We actually don't cuddle them, especially these guys behind me. They're
Mm-mm.
a no contact animal, so we don't ever touch them. We're not cuddling them. Um, and a lot goes into their care. So you're having to coordinate with vet staff on if they need something, we need to be able to deliver that to the animal. And also knowing your animal. A lot of this is observing them. That way, you know if something's seems a little off with them, you're able to go talk to the right people about that and figure out how to help your animal. And it's working with education staff a lot. I mean, we cross paths a lot during the day, so being able to communicate with them what needs to happen. Um, yeah, it's a lot of different things go into it. It's not just feeding an animal and cleaning up after them. There's many
Right.
different parts that kind of go into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love to point out the specifically the you're not cuddling these animals all the time. As cute as they are, as much as we love
Yes.
those boys, they are still animals and there's a lot of regulations and rules that go into taking care of them. So know that before you get
Liberty
into
does
the
not want
field.
a hug.
Yeah, Liberty does not want a little kiss or a cuddle or a nuzzle or anything. She's got a big beak to let you know that that's not what she wants. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining, Liz. I appreciate
Yeah,
it so much. You have a
thanks for
wonderful
having
rest of
me.
your day. And thank you again for baking that birthday cake for the boys yesterday. It was wonderful.
Of
Everybody should go
course.
check that out.
Yes, please.
All right, guys. Well, that is our last interviewee of our day. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And I want to take just a minute because I saw a couple questions throughout the program that were maybe not super specific to one individual person, but just to give you guys a little bit more information about how to get into the field. I saw somebody ask, for someone who doesn't have many aquatic opportunities in my area, how would you suggest getting experience for a career? That's a great question. So one of them is if you have a zoo or aquarium near you, right? That's obviously a really good way to kind of get your foot in, even if you don't want to work in an aquarium long term, kind of gaining the experience and the knowledge about different species of fish, different species of marine life, whatever it is. That can kind of be a good segue. Or things like volunteering in animal shelters, right? Any kind of animal experience, any kind of, education experience, if that's specifically what you want to do. Any sort of experience, even if it's not specifically marine life or marine science, anything that's kind of around that. That's a really good thing for those of you who maybe don't live on the coastline, right? And then I saw somebody said, what courses, classes, or programs online would you recommend to a school teacher who wants to make a career change to be an educator at the aquarium? What a wonderful question. In order to kind of get into our field, one of the certifications that a lot of me and my team have gone through is the National Association of Interpretation has courses that teach you how to kind of be an informal educator, to switch from that structured classroom to a more informal education setting. That's one of them, absolutely. And that friend, if you want to email me after the program, I'd be happy to chat more with you because I have so many things to tell you about that. But I want to make sure that we get everybody out of here on time. Thank you again so much for joining us today. Thank you to my interviewees and to everybody that helped with our program today. We have another virtual event next month. We're going to be highlighting some woman wave makers. We're going to be, for Women's History Month, we're going to be highlighting some female scientists in the realm of marine science, and learning about all the remarkable things that they've done. So check that out. Feel free to come back and watch, and we hope we see you again sometime. Have a wonderful rest of your day.